All right. Well, welcome everybody. Wow. To the Poet Circle, who is working with NMU's Visiting Writers Series to host this reading tonight of our great friend of everybody in this room, Jonathan Johnson. So I just have to thank a few people. Group setting, I have to thank the friends of PWPL Library who pay for the live streaming. So if you're not in this room and are watching at home, you're a lot cooler than everybody in this room right now. And we have the friends to thank for that live stream that you are watching. I'm just going to make you aware of a couple things that are upcoming next week in particular. Next week, Monday, we have a really wonderful concert. Richard Gilwitz and Tim May. They are guitar virtuosos. Literally, I don't use that term very often, but they are guitar virtuosos. Richard Gilwitz has gotten like 10 or 15 albums. He just released a new one. He's played at all kinds of venues, including the Atlanta Olympics opening ceremonies. Tim May is a Grammy-nominated guitarist and is touring currently with Happy Matea. So he's coming here to play, and then he's getting on a plane in Green Bay to meet up with Happy Matea. Must be nice. Okay. So anyway, that is Monday, 6:30 p.m. In the community room downstairs. I'm not going to make you sit in here for that one. The tickets for that are $5. They're on sale down in the circulation desk. And all that money that we get from those tickets goes right back into programming here at the library. So those are the two things I really wanted to focus on for you guys tonight. And I'm going to turn things over to my good friend Matt Frank, who is curating the Visiting Writers Series at NMU, to finish up this introduction.
I am the curator. I'm Matt Frank. I'm the director of the Visiting Writers Series at NMU. Thank you all for coming out. Hi, I'm Zach. This is our final event for the fall semester. In the spring semester, in April, what is it, David? April 9th? It's April 9th. We have the brilliant nonfiction and fiction writer Melissa Faliveno. Who's going to be here? So she's known for her nonfiction. Her nonfiction collection, Tomboyland, was named Best Book of the Year a few years ago by everyone. New York Times, Washington Post, I don't know, the papers. And so she's going to be here, and she is going to be reading from her debut novel, Hemlock, which is actually set in northern Wisconsin. It's a Northwoods novel, a haunted, strange, destabilizing Northwoods novel. I read some of it, and it's not out yet, but I got connections as a curator. But enough of me. We are here tonight for Jonathan Johnson and to open for Jonathan Johnson, NMU's MFA program's own Sarah Daniels, who is the winner of the first annual Ron Johnson Memorial Award in Creative Writing. And to talk a little bit, to talk a little bit more about that award and to introduce Sarah Daniels is none other than Jonathan Johnson.
Pardon me, I had to park a couple blocks away, so I've got to dig out my notes here. This is what we're after. Some of you might remember my dad's gym bag that he would bring to class, right? And he had all these little zippy, and I swore to God I would never be that guy when I was a kid. Oh, man. I just want to read, just to kind of conjure him a little bit, I'd like to just read a page, if you'll indulge me, from my dad's work. This was something he was working on late in his life. It's a little, about a page or so essay from a memoir he was working on in his later years. Nye Creek, 1953. Drizzle, steady dripping off the eaves, windows of our small kitchen fogged over, clothes drying on a couple wooden racks, smells of mom cooking supper, hamburger patties that sizzle when she turns them in her iron skillet, potatoes boiling in an aluminum pot. Other rooms, front room with a kitchen table and 2 spindly chairs, high chair for Richard, 3 empty nail barrels Dad brought home from work, one with a pillow Steve sits on, the other 2 for Lester and me. 2 wooden rockers, the red one where Mom rocks Richard to sleep, the black one where Steve sits on Dad's lap until Richard goes to sleep and they are put to bed. A small wood heater with a homemade wooden guard so Steve and Richard can't burn themselves. The bigger room was built first when Mom and Dad bought the land, where Dad and Mom and Lester and I lived, we 4 sleeping on the floor. Mom cooked on the kitchen stove with kerosene lamps at night. Other rooms were added on. The kitchen, and after Steve and Richard were born, a bedroom where Dad and Mom slept with Richard's crib. An apple box stood on one end with a pillowcase cover was the nightstand. And then a separate, smaller bedroom was built where Steve and Lester and I sleep on a mattress on the floor. Now, in the front room, I see through fogged windows Dad's car lights as he turns off the county road onto our driveway. After supper, I unload the car. The back seat of the Henry J folds onto the seat cushion, so the cargo area becomes larger than the trunk of a big car, enough to hold a dozen stacks of planer ends that Dad pulls from the dumpster after work. Just one load contains enough wood to burn in our cook stove and heater for days. What with my brothers in the house, not able to play outside because of the drizzle, there's not much chance to be alone. It's been drizzling for over 2 weeks straight, no sight of sun. After clearing off the stacks near the back of the overhanging trunk lid, I climb up into the cargo area to work. The smell of Dad's fur strong. In the dim light, I track the drizzle dripping from the raised lid of the trunk, hear the faint cascade off the eaves of the house. In this closed darkness, I sense myself. The core of my being slowly spreads, fills my body, all of me. The sense of self comes like this, unannounced, when I am alone. Without thinking about it, I know this self will carry me through the remainder of my days, a self that will never grow old, nor younger than it is right now. Thanks, Dad. Yeah, thank you. Thanks. So, along with caring for his family, for us, and writing his own words, my dad's life work was building and teaching in the creative writing program at Northern. As his son doing the same kind of work now, it gives me profound satisfaction to see his legacy thriving here. Holy cow. And to know that a new, brilliant young writer, Sarah Daniels, is getting a boost in her career and confidence from his legacy. Sarah is a deeply, deeply gifted writer. Like Dad, she writes about coming of age and discovering who she is in hard Scrabble places. He would have loved her work. But she sings of struggle and emergence of spirit with her own original, innovative voice. I'm looking forward to reading her work for many years to come, even as I remember his. The contest judge, David Dodley, called Sarah's hybrid piece, Narrowlands, Michigan, amazing, and said, it's about place in a way that is mysterious, familiar, evocative, emotional. The little bits of etymology actually add to the argument of the place. But mostly, I like how it romanticizes what I think of broadly as rural Michigan. It's not exactly about beauty, it's about survival. Which, by the way, this is me now, which by the way, is why I read that piece from my dad's. I thought, wow, this is a piece that Sarah would get. It's about poverty, but it's very much about how place shapes us. Is the local weather something the speaker, narrator struggles against? Or is it that she feels lucky to have witnessed and yes, survived? Both, I'd say. Sarah Daniels is a creature of the woods of Big Rapids, Michigan. She holds a degree in secondary English curriculum from Central Michigan University and is currently an MFA candidate right here at Northern Michigan University, where she serves as associate poetry editor of Passages North and spends her time cold water swimming. Her work can be found in Pleiades, Fog Lifter, and Hole in the Head Review, as well as on her grandmother's fridge. That's the best publication there is, isn't it? Bravo, Sarah. That's amazing. She got there first. Sorry. That's her bio now. You can't do that. I'm so jealous. She writes about other creatures. And I would add to her bio, she literally single-handedly saved Big Bay's internet service by unplugging a refrigerator. Ask her about that. Please help me welcome Sarah Daniels.
Hello. I would like to point out that in saving Big Bay's internet, there's some people in the back who have also helped save Big Bay's internet out on Grand Island, so hello. But yeah, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. That was so kind. And thank you, everyone, for showing up. I've never seen this room so crowded, which is so intimidating and also so joyful because I get to be here with all of you right now, talking about writing and listening to an incredible writer in Jonathan Johnson later. Thank you for sharing the stage with me and letting me have a little moment and a chance to introduce you in a little bit. And thank you to Matt Frank for putting on an incredible Visiting Writers series. If you get the chance to come back in the spring, you absolutely should, because he brings in incredible people, and I just get to be here and watch it, so thank you. So the piece I wrote is an essay about Mount Pleasant, Michigan, and I know you were just mentioning it's a mysterious place, but I'll just tell you it's about Mount Pleasant. And the running joke with Mount Pleasant is there's no mountains and it's not pleasant. I guess that's really all there is to say about it. Here's the essay. It's called Narrowlands, Michigan. No more than 50 miles wide, no more than 100 long. Almost none of it is real. Bowling alleys, gas stations that sell wood by the bundle, lonely roads. Every time I come back, someone gets shot and someone else tells me the story of it. Every time I come back, another ghost. Barns, abandoned homes, guts of bird on the 2-lane. Monoculture crops spread thin and far like air. Clouds forever closing in. In a land of the greatest lakes, this place hums farthest from shore. Living here, I forget the freshwater sea, and forgetting becomes its own sea. A fog and mist I walk into again and again, with something further than choice, closer than love. How to describe the Narrow? Nothing very tall, sky very close. In and out of it so soon by car, but it feels as though you might take a wrong turn and pass through a loop or a threshold and never leave. Or else leave is something different. I remember it shrouded in fog even when it wasn't. I remember it as memory, the memory place. You won't find it on a map. If you've been there, you'll know. I was born in the Narrow. It has a lid beneath which everything that has ever laughed or breathed or shit there remains. So many already by the time I joined. I could give you coordinates, but that is the wrong place. This one only lets you in if your hunger is right. The creature in my closet lived in the Narrow. He was a wave of shadow particles and moved by disappearing and reappearing cells of himself. He visited when I turned the lights out. I would flip the switch and scuttle to bed, aware of him for the whole journey. I would say, don't hurt me, and he didn't. He laid his shadow self all around me, the fur and claw of him against my knees and my nape and my forehead. My grandmother also lived in the Narrow. She was a tree in the kindergarten playground. She lived across the street from the paper mill and the train tracks, half a mile from the BP station where a man sold dirt. This was a very flat part of the earth. Flatness is necessary. It means you don't see further but level. No one knew this was my grandmother. Don't you recognize her, I asked. She got into this oak and doesn't want out. She sits in the corner. The swings creak and push the wind across the grass. She swings her many limbs, and I know her. My heart lived in the narrow, too. Even now it beats its flutter wings and asks to eat. It is a bloody and bloodthirsty scrap, like a worm cut in two, moving and profligate. My heart would like to bite, and I do not mean this as a metaphor. It's there for anyone to see. My heart is a biting thing, and only other biting things will recognize it. People act like aloneness is a hole, but it's a ring. Put down your cup and it's water. Watch what I mean. Hunger lived in the narrow, too. As a teenager, I wouldn't eat until my head became light and the world porous. My stomach gurgled and was not empty. It was a ring. I sat on rocks and public benches until the murmuring passed and I could walk again. I sat and I waited and I listened. My mother lived in the narrow, too. As a child, she asked the Ouija board a single question, always the same answer, 3.5. After marriage, she had a childless 7 years. She wept and consulted psychics. This place gave her 3 children and an almost twin. Halves live in the narrow, too, and cling like dew to the dinner pot. Grief is shaped exactly like a needle or a spoon. The lid of the narrow is gray and solid and absolutely furless. I like lids. They simmer and make steam. This part of the world has been simmering for a long time, reducing. In college, I drive across and lengthways all afternoon. I kill time. I remember that blood has no moral imperative. Aloneness is a ring of blood. A ring of blood looks like a lid. I drive on roads I will never find again. Some places allow you once, and only if your hunger matches. Other roads I find again years later, surprised to remember them. On one, my mother vomits in the passenger seat. On another, pines. They live in the narrow and die here too. By now, you'll be asking what I mean. This is the wrong question, except for the word mean, which isn't a question at all. Old English gives us the word alone, from all and one, literally wholly oneself. The word gives itself away from the onset. Baked into all and one is the many-voiced, the ogre and his murmurings, the witch and her night song, egret chattering at the pond's nape, organ in my childhood church singing with many throats and bleeding from every one. Aloneness is polyphonic and contradictory, a frog and his mutant spawn. Old English also gives us longing, or to go along with. Out of this, someone fashioned the word belonging. In the narrow, you can't walk without bruising elbows or knees. I woke up swollen. I did not make friends. I drove without destination to see what might happen, what I might run into. People told stories of monsters you could conjure at the roadside, but only at 2 a.m. and only with liquor. I followed the narrow peak inside belong, long, as a verb to crave or desire the unlikely, as an adjective a great length from end to end. In its old usage, distant, remote, the longing place. To be long is a place, the one which we go with and stay with and want, the one we are far from and watching. Alone and belonging keep the same sweet center, low, the noise of cow cry or crawling. One summer, my mother gave me a melon scoop, and I ate identical mouthfuls of fruit until sick. In poetry, we call this assonance. In reading, we might trip over... That's a lie. In reading, we might trip over similar words, so that alone and belonging could become a longing, meaning to keep to the outskirts of want, to lick the picture frame, to open the door and let in night bugs, meaning I am not without wanting, so I am not without. Forget etymology. Aloneness comes from the window, through which things enter and leave. Around its edges lives winter, sometimes ice, sometimes green water, as from damp and breathing things. Evidence. Surely you remember. Surely you know. This is what I've been trying to tell you. Alone is the headlight. Alone is the pothole with its edges and their cutting. Alone is the circle of sky, the doorway, television, radio knob. It's static moving, a transmission of sound coming through. Thank you. Well, when I first met Jonathan Johnson, it was dark outside, and I could see just enough of him to tell that he was tall and smiling and covered head to toe in sleet. We were at the base of Sugarloaf Mountain, which many of you are probably familiar with, and we were standing in wind and freezing rain, and it was getting dark out. And when Jonathan told me he had walked 6 miles to join my MFA class, holding class on the mountain, something about him made sense to me. And after reading his work and spending some time together, especially at lunch today, I realized that first glimpse of him, brimming with a quiet confidence and a kindness, and almost deranged with love for being outdoors, says so much about the human being and writer that he is. So someone willing to spend an evening with a graduate class without getting paid, someone with a deep and abiding love for the natural world, for teaching, and for the community that writing brings together. And these loves saturate Johnson's works, his 7 books, from his collections of poetry to his most recent collection of short stories. Whether he's writing about Jim and Ray singing at bangos, or the kinship that we feel with the ancient rock of the Canadian Shield, or the black mountains, black lichen, and black sea of the coastal Scottish Highlands, he transports the reader to every place that he writes about. He's made homes across countries and continents, Marquette, Spokane, Scotland, and brings you there with his careful attention. You can feel, too, his care for language and the elliptical quality of his writing. Words and images appear and then reappear, turning on themselves in a kind of kaleidoscope, as though he's listening to the music of a place and attempting in his writing to bring us there with him. And you can feel his love, too, for the community and for the legacy that he has inherited. Johnson describes himself as a former English department brat, as well as an NMU alumni, whose father helped start this graduate writing program here that we all know and love. And in his beautiful memoir, The Desk on the Sea, Johnson answers the call of his mother to look, notice, and love. Throughout his work, he investigates what it means to be from a place, to share that place with others, to inherit and pass on stories. He considers what it means to be here in this never-ending tapestry of living together. When he led our class to the top of Sugarloaf, he had us turn and gaze in 3 different directions. First, out into the water, and then into the dark and boundless forest, and then finally into the lights of town. He named each direction mystery, companionship, and love. I've been to the top of Sugarloaf a lot in my time here, in a wide array of weather and attitudes, but I've never thought about it quite like that. And that's what his writing offers us, especially in its generosity and attention. A chance to sit deep and long with each other, with the land, and to look, notice, and love anew. I am so grateful to be able to introduce you. Welcome to our visiting writer, Jonathan Johnson.
Oh, there's water. Thank you, Marty. I was told it's a little warm in here tonight. That'll be much appreciated. Newlyweds. Newlyweds. The spring of his diagnosis, they went out to the forest. In places cut before he bought the land, where the open sky bleached the ferns, they planted trees. Hundreds of trees. Each slender wand in their closed fingers, each filigree of roots down into each damp hole they opened. Engaged most of their middle ages in houses across town, they'd savored slow, waking alternate weekends together when their exes had custody. And once their separate sons were raised separately, as agreed, there had been college financial aid implications to consider. She finally moved into his house to recover from double knee replacements. She walked slow laps around the rooms downstairs, dining room, office to the fireplace, archway to the living room where they'd moved the bed, archway to the entry, hall with the coat pegs, kitchen, back to the dining room office with the fireplace and fire he'd build her mornings before he left for campus. Healed, she'd kept her place, where she lives again now, but more or less continued to reside at his, cards with friends, his crowds of books and papers, her crowds of books and papers, laptops opposite across the dining room table, dusk clouds across the horizon at the beach 2 blocks away. 16 years she wore an engagement ring. Then the news. Then the little wedding beside the little waves, his son's speech. Well, Dad finally found a way to marry Terry without making a long-term commitment. Exactly his dad's sense of humor, and one of my favorite jokes to this day. Except, forgive me, it's not altogether true, is it? Even if they got a little less than 2 months. My other favorite joke? Know why one side of a wedge of geese is longer than the other? More geese on that side. Every spring they come with their voices. Every spring they come sailing over those trees north of town for some wild lake beyond. Over those trees, drinking and eating from the earth and breathing the sun. Thank you, Sarah, so incredibly much for that. Dad, where did she go? There you go. Dad would be so incredibly proud of you. I hope you don't mind my saying. He'd be so incredibly proud. This is exactly what he wanted to have happen. Exactly what he wanted to have happen. I want to say how wildly honored I am to read as part of this series. When I was a student, I remember a Nobel Prize winner, Chesan Miłosz, Pulitzer Prize winner. I got to drive Gwendolyn Brooks from Milwaukee. She said, Marquette. Now that's north of Milwaukee, right? And we said, sure, yeah. So and fortunately, thank God, she's had a great disposition, great sense of humor. So I got Gwendolyn Brooks in the car for like 5 hours. She recited 7 at the Golden Shovel, you know, the real cool poem, and it was glorious. And to get to be here now, to be part of this. And I want to thank my friend Matt, my new friend Matt, for you know, I don't know, keeping that torch, you know, keeping that going. It's really, really lovely. And to be part of it means more than I can say. I want to thank Marty Achatz, comrade, poet, friend, adult program director at Peter White. What you do, I mean, I think of Marquette as sort of like our Athens, right? Like 2,300 years later or whatever. And you make it that way, right? When I tell people about Peter White, I say, imagine an incredible small liberal arts campus that's free and for everybody. And you do more than anyone that I know to make that true. So yeah, Marty. I also want to thank the UP or the Marquette Poets Circle. I believe poets are sort of a sacred guild. We better be, because there's not much else in it, right? I mean, if we're not something special, right? I don't know what we're doing. So I believe we're sort of a sacred guild. All poets, right? 8th grade kid trying out her first haiku, or the 8-year-old kid trying out her first haiku in 3rd grade, all the way to, I don't know who's hot right now, whoever, Ada Limon. And we're all part of the same guild trying to do the same thing. You, the Marquette Poets Circle, exemplify that. I mean, you really make that true. I really feel that in your presence, and I'm honored that you wanted to help bring me. I want to thank John Billman for that environmental writing class and a night in the wind and snow on Sugarloaf that I'll never forget. Here's a teaser for the book. John and the predecessors in that class actually get a cameo in the first long story. The story's Presque Isle and the class and John and their time out at the lighthouse. If you don't know, John Billman, the faculty member at Northern, teaches this renowned class. It's getting a reputation all around the country, where he takes his students out to Granite Island, out in Lake Superior, and they watch the Zodiac drive away, right? And that's it. They're on the island, right? And they're going to write, and they're going to learn, and there's not much choice. So that he gets a little cameo in the story Presque Isle. Are you guys going to be able to play? Eh? Cool. Okay. Wonderful. So this thank you works. I want to thank Jim and Ray. I have looked forward to doing a gig with Jim and Ray since I was freaking 17 years old, sitting at Vango's, and I thought, my whole career is predicated on this night, right? Like, that I get to open for Jim and Ray, right? My favorite living musicians, and I mean that. I just saw Willie Nelson, third favorite, a couple months ago. 92. He's doing great. So I get to open. Sarah opens for me. Where did she go? Sarah opens for me. I get to open for Jim and Ray. So thank them so much. They're going to play during the signing. So we'll get to chat, that sort of thing. Jim's dad actually was Professor Art Pinnell. And so Art Pennell's sort of ghostly presence is here as well. And Jim was also a faculty brat, right? As Art was running the place, he was chair for a long time. And Art's career overlapped with my dad's career by a half dozen years or so. So we've got, so the ghost of Art Pennell, the ghost of my dad. We've got Jim, we've got me, and now we've got Sarah. So we got kind of 5 generations who you're going to get to be around tonight, as well as a lot of other brilliant faculty people who are here. I've got is that basket of apples, is that somewhere around? Could we just pass that around during the reading? Don't eat them here, don't worry. Don't eat the apples here, but I just thought a kind of like a little communion. My friend Cooper Jury's camp up past Big Bay, I was texting with him, and we used to go up to his camp when I was in high school, and he said, by the way, the apples are just going to fall on the ground for the deer, which is fine, which is great. Like, the vast majority of them did. He said, but go up and pick some if you want. So Amy and I had a golden day, one of those last really beautiful days a week or so ago, and we went up there and did that. And by the way, the little ones, so Cooper's dad must have planted the orchard, 70 or 80 years ago up there. And I thought, well, there's no way he'd plant a crabapple tree in among these other apple trees. That just makes no sense. So there must be something there, right? And I bit one of those little apples, and I've since discovered it's called a chestnut apple. Does anybody know this apple? Holy smoke, right? Dikey knows this apple. Holy smoke. It's the best apple I've ever had. There's probably not enough of the tiny ones, so split one with somebody. If you're here with somebody, take the smallest apple. It's kind of a philosophical lesson, isn't it? Take the smallest apple. They're the best. And share it with someone. So that'll be our kind of communion for the evening. Also, Amy and I would love to have, is our house big enough? Amy and I would love to have you over to our place afterwards. For those of you, it's a school night and people have stuff, but if you don't we have to get out of here and let people go home at 8:30. These people don't make enough money to do the incredible things they do, and so we're not going to keep them over. So we've got to shut down at 8:30. So if I haven't had a chance to sign your book, go ahead and come on over. And if you know you can't come over, if you got kids or you're a morning person or whatever, maybe let those folks who can't come over skip to the front of the line, and I'll sign your book over at our place. It's 507 Spruce between Michigan and Ohio, which has always cracked me up, right? There is something between Michigan and Ohio, us. Let's see. I want to thank Amy. This is the last big thanks. And so when I was here, like Sarah said, I have a little bit of a walking problem. It's my own little addiction. And when I was here last for Northern's Visiting Writer Series in 2013, I thought, that's kind of a cool thing to come back to your school. I should walk there. So I walked over from Munising, took a couple of days and did that. And I was walking, Amy and I, when we decided to get married, were living downstate. I was doing my PhD, she was doing her master's in social work, and we would drive home. And we had this discussion about, like, we should have a party. We've been living together. We should go ahead and get married. Like, we're not going anywhere with each other, right? And, okay, let's get married. And I know exactly the spot we were at. It's a long curve over there in Alger County, kind of between Autrain and Deer Lake, where there's a bunch of wetlands inland, right? And then the lake is on the other side. So I was walking back from Munising then. I guess it would be 20-some years later, and I came upon this. For those of you in the back, it says permanent trailer, and I thought, well, that's the metaphor right there, right? Amy's followed me. She's been my permanent trailer all over, like this job chasing, academia, degrees, all that sort of thing. And I've been her permanent trailer in my human development as a parent, as a person of goodness in the world. I feel like I've been her permanent trailer following her. So this will be like my security blanket for the reading. I would sit it here, but anyway, there it is. I won't put it here. Okay. I also want to thank AIM for the covers. This is the first time we've done this together. Both covers are her photographs. So in addition to being a kids and family therapist, she's a really accomplished, magnificent photographer. So thank you for collaborating with me. Yeah. So Newlyweds was from the Book of Stories, The Little Lights of Town. And The Little Lights of Town is dedicated to the people of Marquette, past, present, and future. So I guess my very final thank you is I want to thank all of you for being their ambassador, right? You are the representative of all the people this book is dedicated to, and it again means more than I can possibly express that you all came out tonight for poetry and that I get to read to you. And I'll start with the epigraphs, because the epigraphs make me toe-curlingly happy. There are two of them. First epigraph is from the Marquette City Police Log. If you don't read the Marquette City Police Log, you really need to. Occasionally, it is depressing. So you go in with a little bit of peril. 95% of the time, it'll make your damn day, right? So this is from the Mining Journal's Marquette City Police Log, August 28th, 2019, 500 block Lakeshore Boulevard. 12:54 a.m. Report of something on fire approximately 100 yards offshore. It was the moon. That outdoes like Tufu and all the great haikuists, and that just blew my mind. The epigraph, so that's very local to us, right? I mean, people will read that elsewhere, maybe 4 or 5 of them, and they'll go, oh, okay, whatever. But this second epigraph, I think, is for everyone who's loved a place and left it for a while and maybe came back, maybe didn't come back. And that's from Dylan and Cash, right? Johnny Cash and Bob Dylan's. And it's a traditional line, but they incorporated it into Girl from the North Country, and that's, remember me to one who lives there. There's one story that's in both collections. I couldn't decide if it was a poem or a story. And then when I got the news that Carnegie Mellon was going to do both books, I thought, well, you really have to decide. And then I thought, I don't, right? They're my books. I can have it be a poem and a story. So this is Chorus of the Cold Weather Body Farm. It's really cool to read where you don't have to explain everything. But in case you don't know, over on one end of town, like near the city limits, is the world's only cold weather body farm. It's exactly what you think it is, right? The northern students of taphonomy, students in the anthropology department use it as a field lab. And then on the other end of town, it's useful to know as you go into this poem, if you don't know it, is a Zen temple in an old kind of rickety, wonderful farmhouse where I go. And then we live with those two poles kind of orbiting around us, which for me is perfect. Perfect. Bullseye, as my teacher would say. There's a couple of sutras in here, and you might recognize the sutras that show up. And it starts with a Wallace Stevens epigraph. Chorus of the Cold Weather Body Farm. Children picking up our bones will never know that these were once as quick as foxes on the hill. Wallace Stevens. If not for a beauty strip of maples and pines and the wire-crowned fence screened forest green for our privacy, our high acre would sit exposed on the ridge, like a porch overlooking the highway and Lake Superior horizon. We chose this, air open to the sky, insects diligent as a shipyard salvage crew, little animal snouts following hunger to find and touch us with their acquisitive wetness. Crows. Surprisingly, there isn't much smell, assures the anthropology department head. You have to be literally inside the facility and have fresh donations. The tinnitus singing of overhead power lines accompanies our silent recitation. Forever donors will leave nothing to scatter to summer waves. When our work in this field is done, our curated bones will wait in their cases to teach hushed sophomores the genders and heights, ancestries and accidents we once called ourselves. Meanwhile, we gather here like professors. Virtuous field far beyond form and emptiness, recite the farmhouse temple disciples of Zen across town. Deep in the dorms, students of human taphonomy sleep late with young hands and fresh sheets. We pretend to be victims to the sunrise. We soften into our cushions of soil, like our neighbors in the Stone Castle State Prison behind us, who eat from trays on steel under electric light, we'll winter here beside the lake's white desert of ice. No color, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no object of mind. We do not ask you, driving by below, to consider us. Hold your wheel warm toward town, through spindrift, snaking across white blacktop. Cold is the point of this place, how we freeze and desiccate, our mouths mummification in wind, until for a time the snow's solemn accumulation inters us after all. So, I think they have a lot to say to us, the dead. Sometimes, at least for my part, I've misheard them, misunderstood. This poem's called Dispensation, and I happen to have from a previous, this is from an earlier book, but I happen to have a couple dozen broadsides of this left. So if this poem speaks to you and it's something you'd like, just let me know at the signing table. You don't have to buy a book or anything. I would love to give you this broadside if this is a poem that you need or if it speaks to you in some way. Dispensation, and you know this word, right? A release from judgment, like a release from being judged or having sinned or whatever. Dispensation. We are mistaken to suppose the dead want us to walk out at night and stare alone into the dark horizon. Thinking them just beyond the wind, we stand facing the cold and waves like a shore pine shaped to absence. We speak to clouds we know only by a lack of stars. We count ourselves with them, keeping our backs to town or gazing down shore at its small lights with abstracted affection. But the dead don't ask for our loneliness. We confuse loyalty to what is not with loyalty to them while trying not to shiver. In fact, our little errand was done when we heard the crescendo and diminuendo of those waves, visible only in the white of their ending, and thought what little we perceive of beauty's extent. Beyond that, the dead would send us to dens of laughter and warm light. "What are you doing out here?" they would ask. "There are songs being sung. Take yourself there. Touch someone's hand. Sit at a table where someone speaks the name I knew you by." And it's not only people, right? It's not only people we lose. We lose our fellow critters now and then. Some of you knew our Newfoundland dog, Waggett. Unexpectedly, the girl's dog dies. In the back of the car, speeding through the night, the girl in bed, waiting for news. The parents must drive back from the vet in the dark, 25 miles of forest, broken by the thin beginning of what will be light, out on the horizon of water. The girl is waiting inside on the landing to ask if the dog is okay. The girl's usual disposition is even and sweet, like her dog's. A single bark at the sliding glass door to come in. The fierce "don't" and rage in the girl's clenched fist and eyes staring him down were not the anguish her father, moving to embrace her, expected. At the vet's, the dog's body had been heavy as a human's in the blanket sling. Her back was so big, all three, mother, father, and girl, could scratch deep in her fur and sing about an itchy back, a song the mother had invented just for her. "What's wrong?" 4.5 years ago, the father had asked into the back seat of the same car, driving the dog home over snowy mountains. The dog's head was a puppy's in the girl's lap, and the girl was weeping. "She's perfect." Now, the mother says, "Let her go," when the girl rushes past them and out the door. Upstairs, there is a moment the father thinks he hears coyotes screaming, high-pitched, through night ending in the forest. Before he knows, it's the girl. The sound of being loved by the dog leaving her body. Let's go somewhere considerably lighter. You know the wisdom. You got to let things go, right? You got to let things go, man. You got to let things go. I've heard that all my life, and it's really, really good advice for me. I really need to let things go, but I am very good at holding on to things, right? And there is wisdom in holding on to things. There's wisdom in keeping stuff, right? Those of you who are young and here in Marquette, I saw in your eyes, right, when we were eating together, you're going to keep it, right? You're going to be like us. You're going to keep this place. I want to dedicate the reading of this poem to 8-day-old Louis Limburg Barkin. Did I get that right? Louis Limburg Barkin, grandson of our own Paul and Zizi Limburg. So this is, yeah. Right? And so the world begins again, right? It's tattered, it's tired, it needs a lot of help, but it gets to begin all over again, right? And they get to be the Marquette grandparents, right? Frosty treats and the beach and all that stuff. You can ask Anya's grandparents about how being the Marquette grandparents goes. It's pretty cool. And you'll recognize some of the stuff in this, right? I'm not typically a surrealist poet, and you'll know that I'm not a surrealist poet, although anybody from anywhere else would hear what's coming and go, that's surrealism. You'll know. When something's good, keep it. The night clouds rained and took all morning moving on, so that now afternoon opens its bright prism on everything. Cool breeze through the anemones of trees, skin of a passing woman's shoulder, gleaming chrome fender of her bike, black iron and translucent street lamp glass, like the granite gray, 6-foot, resolute-browed Easter Island head between pots of blue asters on a stoop and supervising the corner of 3rd and Ridge. I have taken myself most seriously. Fears and desires, desires and fears. Meanwhile, this clear, easy joy had been waiting for me. That passing Jeep guy has stacked his roof high with equipage. Out he goes. We are born clean of clothes, money, or name. Numberless moments lined up to receive us. May Lewis's moments be infinite. Yeah. Okay. So I think I'll two more pieces. I'm going to read an excerpt from. So the way that the Little Lights of Town is structured is a short piece, like little microfiction, little flash, and then longer story. Short, long, short, long, short, long. I made that up. That's wholly mine. In our time, right, Hemingway, right? And some of you know Stu Dybek's Coast to Chicago. So I'm totally stealing that, but I love the way the little pieces inform the longer ones. So we had a little one, and I'm not going to read the whole long story, but I'm going to read a little excerpt from it. So our speaker is a 31-year-old PhD art student, and he's speaking to us from the hospital, and it can be either hospital. It works either way, right? They both have a view of the lake. And he's at the bedside in the intensive care unit of his younger brother, Rick. And Rick has been hit in the head in a logging accident, and this injury is such that it didn't kill him, but he will never be more than a brainstem keeping him breathing, right? And our speaker has come to that realization, and it's clear to him. His sister is not there yet. His sister is an artist, right? She's a painter in Marquette, and she figures, okay, well, my work is flexible. We'll build a ramp to the house. Rick, our younger brother, can live with me, and as fate would have it, her husband is an emergency room nurse, and so she's just gung-ho. This is all going to work out, right? And our speaker realizes not, and he's made the decision that he's going to end his brother's life. And he's thought about how, right? He thought, well, I'll shoot him. It'll just be over. I'll come in and I'll shoot him. And then he's thought, well, no, that's so incredibly unfair to everybody else in this emergency room. That'll be horrible. It'll be traumatic for everyone. And I'll go to prison. And then he thinks, well, I'll smother him with a pillow, but it's going to set off all the, all his monitors and alarms and that sort of thing. And so he's figuring out what he's going to do and how he's going to do this. And then he starts thinking back about when the three of them were kids. So it's the speaker, and then Becky, and then their younger brother, Rick. When we were kids, there was this tire in our river, marooned in the shallows just below the swimming hole beneath the falls. The tire was on its steel rim and half submerged in river sand, and it bothered it bothered Becky that it was there. We used to spend most summers with our parents at the cabin. Our dad was an art teacher at the high school, but not the kind of art teacher you might imagine. He was more of the grizzled, bearded, quiet, drinking art teacher type, Hemingway as Upper Michigan art teacher. And as soon as school was out for the year, he'd head straight up to the cabin and fish in the river in the morning and paint in plein air and drink cans of Old Style in the afternoon. I was the oldest, then Becky, then Rick. We were free to roam the woods, to ride our bikes down the old logging road to Bear Lake when our friends, Kyle and Cindy, were at their family's camp, or work on our tree fort, or go upriver to swim at the falls. The tire had been there as long as we could recall. How had it even gotten there, Becky wondered. Who would go to all that effort? It was probably a mile from the nearest road. Looking back, I suppose it must have been kids like us, maybe with the idea of somehow getting the tire off the rim and making a swing, maybe to burn in a campfire that never happened, maybe just for the challenge, or just to watch it roll off the top and tumble with the water down the boulders and rock face to the falls. I could see that. But however it got there, Becky grew to loathe its presence. It was the single flaw in our perfect place. One hot afternoon, Kyle and Cindy were there, and we all went up to the falls. I was a sophomore in high school, so Becky would have been in 8th grade, same as Kyle, and Rick would have been in 7th, a year older than Cindy. The night before, Rick had told me he was in love with her. That's how he said it, very matter-of-factly, when we were up in our beds, twin mattresses on the floor of the cabin loft. For some reason, her family was going to leave early that summer to go back downstate where they were from. I guess I'm just screwed, Rick said to the log rafters in the dark above us. He has always been quiet and even. He'd never confided in me anything like that before, nor since, now that I think about it. The next day, when we were all at the falls, Becky started in again about the tire. It's a profanation, she declared. We should do something. Her birthday was coming up. Our parents weren't planning on going back into Marquette in the meantime, and Rick hadn't yet bought her a present. Becky, he announced, as we all treaded water in the cold pool beside the spill of falls, I'm going to give you your present early this year. I recall the freckles on his face and shoulders, and his wet, black, curly hair as he and Cindy knelt in the sandy shallows and dug loose the tire together. Her bathing suit was lime green, and her long, curly hair was red. I remember thinking then that just because his gesture was for our sister and clearly intended to win the admiration of Cindy, I'm going to read that sentence again. I remember thinking that just because his gesture for our sister was clearly intended to win the admiration for Cindy didn't mean it was any less a good gesture. Sometimes we do the exact right thing for motives other than doing the thing itself, and so what? Rick was scrawny, but he carried that tire with its rim the whole way, the whole root-snarled trail up and down the wooded slopes along the riverbank, all the way back to the cabin, almost an hour walk. He leaned it up against the woodshed. For Rick's birthday that November, Becky gave him a drawing she'd made of the tire there in the tall grass, leaning against the weathered woodshed boards. Cal comes in before he starts his night shift down in the ER. He's tall and athletic with a buzz cut. He looks more like a survival school instructor than a nurse. He rides his mountain bike to work even though it's winter and brings his nurse clothes and shoes in his backpack. He talks with the staff out at the desk, then comes in and speaks to me in hushed tones, asks, "How's it going?" and checks over Rick, looks at his IV bag. He squeezes Rick's hand and says, "I'm here, Rick, it's Cal," his voice suddenly at normal conversational volume. They get along okay. got along okay. But there was never much to talk about between them. Cal plays ultimate frisbee. He rides his bike through the woods just out of town with his buddies, and they all end up back at Black Rock's Brewery, the old converted house down on 3rd Street, where there's 50 bikes parked outside some evenings. He's gregarious and go-get-him, and would, Becky has told me, have gone to medical school, but he knew she'd be miserable all those years away from the Upper Peninsula. Rick did a year at the Jacob Eddy Skills Center, studying aircraft maintenance with the idea of getting a job out at the airport. But when our mother died, she left us each a little more than $40,000 in life insurance, money Rick used to buy the Beast, his logging truck, and set himself up working in the woods. He lives year-round in the cabin. He likes being alone for days at a time. When deer season comes, he parks his truck and goes back into the woods again to hunt. The friends he has are guys from the Lumberjack Tavern and a few of our dad's retired friends who still live around Big Bay and take him out sometimes in their fishing boats on Superior. Once in a while, though, he and Cal and Becky go to a hockey game at the university together. Rick's last birthday, Becky drew the Beast in the forest with colored frosting on a cake, and she and Cal had him over for dinner. "No stumps?" I texted back when she texted me a photo of the cake. "It's his birthday," she replied. I sometimes think my brother, sister, and I each took one strand from the braided personality of our father and wove our own life from it. Becky's the artist, of course. On the surface, Birkenstocks, long peasant skirt, environmentalist stickers plastered on the back of her old Subaru, she couldn't be less like our dad. But the difference between some of her paintings and some of his are so subtle, it takes even me a moment to tell whose is whose. The paintings I'm thinking of are intimate. Little cattail riverbanks, white pine shorelines, meadows. Though hers tend towards slightly brighter hues, clear skies, some ineffable optimism in the landscape. I got the teacher strand from our dad, the art disciple, though I have no aptitude and don't paint. But like him, I prefer those realities of half-invention, those places in Homers and Hoppers in which the flat plane gives way to an infinite depth. I can feel the forest going on beyond the wall of forest, the rest of the room deeper, and the house itself deeper beyond the room we can see on the canvas. And Rick got the woodsman strand from our dad. He literally inherited the four-wheelers and fishing tackle and aluminum canoe, the rusty, unregistered plow jeep, and the cabin fridge half full of old styles when the old man died pretty far down the liver transplant list. He even inherited Dad's place among that circle of friends up in Big Bay, the guys who take him fishing and show up on snowmobiles at the cabin for a drink. I've ridden a few runs with him in the Beast to the sawmill in Rapid River and the one over in Munising. He even listens to Dad's music on the CD player, stuff like Patsy Cline and George Jones. You get the idea. On his way out, Cal stops at the nurse's station. Through the glass, I watch them smile and chat. I suppose it's because of his good guy warmth that his colleagues let me stay after he visits, after dusk is all the way down over the lake, and they dim the lights in the patients' rooms so the dark top of the town and the stars come closer. Or perhaps they let me stay because no amount of rest and quiet is going to turn things around for Rick. Maybe the nurses are just letting me get used to the long haul, the same way they let the old husbands and wives stay when their partner in bed is beyond hope, the way they let that boy's parents stay next door. A few minutes after Cal leaves, Rick's nurse strides purposefully into the room. Tammy, according to the name in marker on the whiteboard. She reminds me of Cindy, that same I there on the end. Her hair is light brown, not red, but like Cindy's, it's a long, curly cascade that frames her face. I'm surprised she's allowed to wear it down like that in this job, but I'm glad. How is he? She asks in that same hushed tone Cal uses, that they all use. Patient. Clever. She reaches up to unhook the old IV bag. I think he'd want me to ask how you are. That's kind of him. Okay, I guess. Ready for spring. It had been a day of biting cold sunshine. He'd want me to say, hang in there. He sounds like a nice guy. He would have liked you very much. Forgive me, but you look like a girl he had a crush on when we were kids. Do I? She hangs the new IV bag. Her family's cabin was near ours. You know how it goes with childhood crushes. You never really get over them? Exactly. Sorry to be so blunt. This is a blunt place sometimes. She writes a note in the clipboard. Well, she looks out toward the nurse's station, empty now, and turns back. She leans down and touches her lips to Rick's remaining cheek, just above the beard that has started to grow in. Shh. She holds her finger to her lips. Thank you. She smiles faintly, maybe a little sadly, and leaves. So now, I've been wondering when that kiss makes it clear. This is so trippy for me to be up here. There's like this 22-year-old kid who's sitting there, you know, watching the visiting writer going like, oh yeah, what? Like, and yeah, it's just like, my friend Mary Sue, my great friend who did the MA with me back in the day, is now this magnificent, powerful attorney in central Wisconsin. And she surprised me I was slightly late to dinner because she surprised me like 5 minutes before dinner by having driven up, you know, like she had a case that settled right at the last second, hopped in the car and drove all the way up here. So Mary Sue, I think it works out for both of us. I'm going to end with this poem. The only thing that's useful to know, I mean, it's a poem, so it's self-contained, but it's kind of fun for me to say, is I've been watching wolves for about 25 years in Yellowstone. I started doing it alone. I started doing it with Amy and Anya, and then I did it alone. And I had this my friend Mac gave me his, he tried to give it to me. I gave him $1 and a bottle of vodka for it. But he tried to give me his old minivan. I took the back seats out, and I would drive to Yellowstone. I'd watch the wolves, and then I'd drive the 12 hours to get back to teach. And then I turned that into a class, a lot like John Billman's Island class. We go out and we watch wolves. There's no zodiac that leaves us, but there's no cell service, which is important for this poem. There's no cell service. The poem is called Amy. This morning I heard wolves through mountain rain. In thin first light, the low sky wet my face. The subject was loneliness. Always, again, loneliness. We are each our own piece of this world a while. From my body across the valley, I watch them find one another, and sniff, and wag, and turn circles of joy, and trot off together. I drove 3 hours of mountain road to call you. Thank you all so much. Thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you. Thank you, Marty. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. It's super hot, and I would love to do questions and answers and talk to you, but let's do that back at my house so we get more chance to hear Jim and Ray. I'll sign some books again. If you are heading home right away, maybe just mention that to people in line, and then those of you who are either going to come over to our place or in not such a rush, let those folks go ahead. Like when somebody has a tight connection at the airport, right? Like, and they're in the back, let them go. Thank you all again so much. Thanks.
I do want to make one more announcement. We have another poet who's going to be reading, doing their debut of their collection on December 9th. Susan Sunshower is going to be reading from her book here down in the community room at 6:30 p.m. December 9th. So I know you all love poetry because you're here, besides loving Jonathan. So please come back for that reading for Susan and show her a really good support. Thank you.